It's Wednesday, September 22nd, 2021. A lot to talk about this evening. Let's get right into it. Dow Jones closes up 338 points today. Markets across the board up. It's all fantastic news. People want to hear the good news. Here's the good news. Markets across the board up. Cryptos up. Bitcoin up. The Fed is telling these markets everything they want to hear. Going to leave rates at zero. We're not going to taper until the end of this year, maybe next year. Maybe we'll raise rates next year, maybe 2023. So markets reacted. It's all great news for these markets. It's more good news for Ponzi schemes. And my question is, they keep talking about tapering. Why aren't they just doing it? Why can't they just taper right now? They told us unemployment today is at 4.8%. Tomorrow we will get the jobless claims, first-time jobless claims for last week. And more than likely, they're going to be well over 300,000 yet again for another week. But as 300,000 plus people file first-time jobless claims for over a year and a half now, every week, as we continue to read the news, restaurants and retailers can't get anybody to work, but unemployment is only 4.8%. So let me know what you think about that. Comment down below. It's just unbelievable how they continue to kick the can down the road. But how come they keep putting off the tapering? How come rates are at zero if everything is so good? And I have another question. I see all these people coming to America, and they're going to need to work, ladies and gentlemen. And we have a large portion of this population that is refusing to go back to work because they either want to receive free money or they're fearful of this health crisis, and they're not going back to work. There's going to be a lot of people that are coming to this country that are going to take these jobs. And I don't know what the rest of this country is going to do for a job. So think about that. Why was there no mention of Evergrande today? I was watching a couple of these economic shows this morning. Nobody said a word. Nobody's talking about the Lehman crisis, the so-called Lehman crisis in China. Nobody's talking about this large development company, the largest in the world, imploding, defaulting, and nobody's talking about the real estate crisis in China. Everything's fine today because the Fed has soothed these markets, and life goes on. It's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays up. I was at the store today, and I want to just say this before I forget. Walked in, bacon up 10% from the week prior. Bacon, just the bacon that I buy, Farmer John's bacon, up 10% from what I paid a week ago. Unbelievable. I shop at a store called Winco. It's a humongous grocery store, huge. And they have the best prices of anywhere, and yet I'm watching prices go up. And 10% in a week, and that's noticeable. CNBC today, Dow rebounds more than 300 points from four-day slide as Fed is not ready to remove stimulus yet. This market is on life support. It cannot get off the bed. It cannot take the IVs out of its arms. It cannot get off the crutches. The Fed is keeping it alive. And people are going to be back in these markets, gambling, back in buying cryptos into these Ponzi schemes. And by all means, if you're making money, God bless you. But it's amazing when we begin to see trouble, crisis in another country like China, how quickly the cryptos fell apart. Look, gold was down a bit today. Silver was flat. We know the game. We know they're being suppressed. And I'm going to continue to play the game and continue to buy gold, buy silver, the two most undervalued assets on planet Earth. And they're going to say, well, the dollar's up. the crisis has been avoided. There's no fear now. There's no fear. So nobody needs gold. Nobody needs silver. What you need to be buying is into Ponzi schemes, into cryptos, buying into this overvalued stock market. Maybe you should be buying into the overvalued real estate market, bond market, you name it. That's what most people will do. And let me tell you, if you're awake and you know what's going on, you should be very, very fearful of what's taking place in these markets. And today, this scares me to death when I see how much manipulation is taking place by the Fed jumping in and just telling everybody what they want to hear. Everything's fine. Look, you know and I know how this is going to end. You've seen this movie before. I've seen this movie before. I know how it's going to end. You know how it's going to end. And every day we need to be preparing for where this is all going. Half of the Fed members now see the central bank hiking rates next year. Remember, they could hike it 5 times next year. They could hike it 0 times next year. Remember, the Fed has done nothing but lied. They've never prevented a recession, never prevented a depression. They've caused recessions and depressions. And anybody that believes what the Fed is saying, you need help. You really, really do. The Fed isn't going to decide when rates go up. I believe it's going to be these markets, it's going to be this economy and the world that is going to decide when the rates go up. They're going to do whatever they have to do not to raise rates, period. They're going to taper, but they're going to taper very moderately. And they're going to be forced at some point. Is that next year? Is that 2023? Is that the end of this year? At some point, something's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen, and they are going to have no other choice but to begin to raise rates. And I believe it's going to be inflation. When inflation continues to run hot, it's going to run hotter. 71 cargo ships now at the Los Angeles port. Look, they're going to continue to print a lot of money. They're going to tell us what we want to hear. They want to kick this can as far as they can. But at some point, there's something out there that is going to be out of their control. And it's probably going to be this inflation that they are losing control of right now, or it's going to be a bank blown up somewhere, or it's going to be a development company somewhere. And it's going to cause the Fed to have to raise rates. They don't want to do it. They don't want this party to end. Nobody wants to be the bad guy here. Nobody wants to deliver the bad news. But when they do, there is going to be so much pain and suffering out there. It is going to be something we will never forget. Yahoo Business jobless claims preview. Another 320,000 individuals likely filed new claims last week. We're going to find that out tomorrow morning. They're usually pretty accurate. I believe this number will be over 300,000. And yet the Fed told us today unemployment is only 4.8%. With this many people losing jobs and all these people coming into the United States, who in the world is going to feed everybody? We have people coming from areas that are very poverty-stricken, people who are going to need to eat, people who are going to need social services, people who are going to need medical care, who are going to need food, and who's going to pay for all this? And these people are going to need jobs. So there are people here in America who are going to be competing against millions of people from other parts of the world coming here for work. It's going to be very interesting how this all plays out in the next 12 to 24 months. The hedge today, Goldman Sachs warns of oil spike to $90 if winter is colder than usual. Well, we had a hotter than usual summer. I no doubt believe that number is very attainable. We will see $90+ oil. Oil was way up today. How in the world is the average American going to continue to pay these soaring prices just to live day to day? Food, energy, rent. It's really going to hurt so many people. And I look at the middle class just being decimated. I see poor people here in America not getting any help. How many people are, 14 million people food insecure, 45 million people on food stamps. and we got a lot of people coming over here. And my heart goes out to anybody, anywhere in the world, who's starving, who's in poverty, who needs help. But I can't afford to pay for it, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. Can you afford to pay for everybody? I'm, limping along day by day to try and make it, to make a living. I know that you're all out there trying to work as hard as you can to make a living, pay your bills, pay the taxes that are continuing to go up. That's going to be another nightmare, is the increase of taxes in America on top of the inflation, the cost of living, day-to-day expenses, bacon going up 10% in a week. I mean, how in the world are we supposed to keep our heads above water? Here's another one on the hedge today. Record shattered. 72 container ships stuck waiting off California. And I'm sure that there's probably millions of plastic pumpkins on those ships for Halloween. There's probably millions of plastic Christmas trees and plastic Santa Clauses on those ships. But ask yourself this, right now, if we had some problems in our electrical infrastructure, say we had to replace a blown transformer, it could take a year, maybe more, for us to get a transformer from Europe over here, and it could be sitting 2 or 3 months out at sea waiting to get to the port. I mean, we are really at a point in history where we are so susceptible to some very bad things happening. We're so dependent on so many countries, and we are going to see so much inflation now with this supply chain breakdown continuing to get even worse. And we don't even mention today Evergrande and what's happening in China, and about an implosion of the largest development company on planet Earth, and many more like them. No mention of it. And we have so much dependency on Asia now to deliver products. And if there's a hiccup over in Asia, we got very, very big trouble. But, if we don't talk about it, maybe it will just go away. So maybe this is why the people in the $3,000 suits and all the analysts and economists and all these business hosts don't talk about it. Just don't talk about it. Don't scare anybody. We don't want any fear in these markets. We just want people to buy the dip, buy into these massive bubbles. Nobody's going to get hurt, right? Again, we know how this is all going to play out. And we'll look back and people will say, how in the world did America not think the stock market was going to blow up? How did they think the bond market and the real estate market wasn't going to blow up? How did they think none of this was going to happen? How did they think that they weren't going to collapse their currency by printing trillions, $11 trillion in the last year and a half? I mean, we're going to look back in the history books and people are going to go, how in the world did they not see this coming? I mean, what we're doing right now is so stupid, so careless, so reckless and irresponsible. And it's going to really be younger people. It's going to be your kids, your great grandkids who are going to really suffer the consequences here with this massive debt. People right now, I'm just watching the markets today, up over 500 points at one point, and it was pure euphoria today. Everything's back, everything's fine. And Jerome Powell came out and said what he had to say, and basically we're going to stay on course and do absolutely nothing. And if anything happens, we will just step in and come to the rescue, and we will print a lot more money and do whatever we have to do. We will use the tools needed to keep this all propped up. The question is, if things were so great, if we had a real economy, if we had a self-sustaining economy, a healthy economy, why would the Fed always have to be stepping in? And why is the Fed buying so much into these markets, into treasuries, into mortgage-backed securities? Existing home sales disappoint in August, median price drops. Existing home sales fell 2% month over month in August. They were expecting a drop of 1.7%. I have no doubt in my mind that this housing bubble will burst. We're beginning to see it really, really cool down now. I'm looking at prices all over the country in sales, and I'm beginning to see a major cool off. Now, you look at Arizona, you look at Florida, you look at Texas, California, things are still doing pretty well. They haven't really cooled off too much. Parts of Arizona have actually, but you look at other parts of the country in the Midwest, the South, it's beginning to cool down, and it's very, very noticeable. And there are going to be millions, let me repeat, millions of people that are going to regret that they bought a house in the last year, maybe last 2 years, because when this thing pops, we're going to see prices of homes plunge, especially when they raise interest rates. And they are doing everything they can. I mean, just think about where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. We're at a point here where people believe that interest rates will never go up. Do you really believe that interest rates are never going to go up? This inflation, when it gets hot enough, is going to force them to raise rates. Many people believe that can't happen. You can believe what you want, but they're going to be forced to do it. History's taught us that time and time again, and history will repeat, and it will be right again. Forget the taper. All hell will break loose if the Fed's 2022 dots signal rate hike. And yes, you will see a Great Depression in America. Will the Fed taper at $15 billion per meeting, or will it taper $15 billion every month? We're looking at $10 billion. This is where we're thinking they're going to taper. $10 billion U.S. Treasuries, $5 billion in mortgage-backed securities. And again, the question is, are they going to taper every meeting, or will they begin to taper every month? But think about this number. The Fed is buying $120 billion a month in bonds. What's $15 billion? Yeah, they're tapering, but it's so minuscule, it won't even matter. And if the market's getting any amount of trouble, they're gonna buy more. They'll buy 160, 180, 200 billion in treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. So it's a very minimal taper. The problem will be when they begin to raise rates. That's when we're gonna see trouble, not from the tapering. So I'm going to wrap this video up, but I want to share one last thing with all of you. I watched an interview earlier today with Jim Chanos, and he said this. He said the Evergrande crisis is just a symptom of the property-driven growth model coming to an end, and it could be far worse than a Lehman-type blow-up for China. There's lots of Evergrandes out there in China. Evergrande just happens to be one of the biggest. But all the developers look like this. The whole Chinese property market is on stilts. In many ways, you don't have to worry that it's a Lehman type situation, but in many others, it's far worse because it's symptomatic of the whole economic model and the debt that's behind the economic model. If you try to deflate the bubble, it's fraught with risk. No matter how it plays out, the Chinese housing market is in trouble. And we're going, in my words, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to see our own housing market in trouble right here in America. We are going to find out that there's a lot of zombie companies out there, that there's a lot of unsafe financial institutions, there's a lot of broken banks, and we're going to find out that we've got our own Evergrandes right here in America. And let's not forget how many American companies may be invested in these major Chinese development companies that are defaulting or about to default. So all I can say is get your house in order, ladies and gentlemen. They made it sound really, really good today. Everything's fine. The Fed is going to just tell everybody what it needs to hear. It's going to tell the markets what it needs to hear in order to keep everything smooth. And I truly do believe there's going to be something out of our control that is going to come in, and it is going to disrupt the markets here in America. And it could happen right here. It could happen in China. It could happen in Europe. It could be something completely out of left field. I don't know. Nobody knows. But what we do know is something is very, very wrong. And we do know that there is so much debt now that this puts us all in danger of a collapse. Wages are not keeping up. Our economy is not growing. We have major supply chain disruptions. We have dependencies on other countries. from everything from pharmaceuticals to transformers, to chips, to semiconductors, etc. And all it takes is some event, and we're going to wake up in very, very big trouble. And this is why I must reiterate that you have a cash reserve, that you have some assets put away. And let me make it clear, I have nothing against cryptocurrencies. There are people making money in it. And look, if you want to gamble and make money, so be it. I wish everybody out there nothing but the best. I cannot afford to gamble, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot afford to gamble. This is not the time, at least for me, to be gambling. This is the time for me to protect my wealth, to put some cash away, to put some food and water away, to put whatever I need to put away to get ready. There is no denying that people are making money in these markets. There's no denying that people are making money in cryptos. And I have no problem with diversification. Look, you have to do whatever you feel comfortable doing, and I'm doing what I feel comfortable in doing. And I'm just a person here with a microphone and a camera. And I just cannot buy into bubbles, and I just can't buy into Ponzi schemes. People write me every day, oh, I made all this money, I made all this money. But there are people that bought into these, into Bitcoin at 65,000, 60,000, and they've gotten smashed. So, if you bought in at 5, 10, 20,000, God bless you. I just cannot be gambling at a time like this. I've got to protect my wealth because I understand what's coming after this. And what is coming after this? Major sales. Because when these markets crash, and they will, and I think most people out there would agree, these markets are going to crash. These markets are in a bubble. These markets are completely overvalued. They're going to crash. So what comes after a crash? Massive sales. I will buy into these markets after they crash. I will buy into real estate when this bubble begins to burst. I cannot buy into a bubble right now. I am looking at buying things that no one else is buying. People are overlooking. I'm buying what's on sale. And two of the things I'm buying are gold and silver because they're on sale. They're the two most undervalued assets on planet Earth. That's going to change, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to change. So be aware of that. Really, really think for yourself. Is this the time to gamble? Maybe if you can afford to gamble, go ahead. But just remember, if it's money you can afford to lose, more power to you. But be very, very cautious where you're putting your money. And remember, is your money safe in a bank? That's another question. Is it safe in the financial institution? Is it safe? Are you going to be able to get to it when you need it? Everybody tells me that they're millionaires now on paper, that they have all this, but they're not holding 1 cent of their money. It's digits on a screen. This thing will fall much faster than when it went up. It's going to come down like a bowling ball out of an airplane, okay? It's going to come down straight down, and it's going to come down very, very hard, very, very fast. And people are going to wake up and look at those digits on a screen, and they're going to realize they were just digits on a screen. Need to be holding something physical. Make sure you're diversified. God bless every one of you. Share this video, give it a like, and make sure you hit that bell notification down below so that you are alerted with the newest videos. God bless you all. I look very forward to talking with all of you soon. Have a great week. God bless.